If you look at just the average kid, and you think of it, are they appreciative? Do they know how to do affection? Are they good with anger? Do they know how to apologize? Can they keep attention? I mean, the average teacher is going to go, no, 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 no. Like we are failing in these areas, and it's because we're not practicing them.
My guest today is Arlene Pellicane. She is a speaker and author, written several books, including one that I'm very excited about called Screen Kids. How's that for a timely book? 5 relational skills every child needs in a tech-driven world. Arlene is the host of the Happy Home podcast. She's earned degrees from Biola University at Regent University, written and appeared on several media outlets, including The Today Show, Wall Street Journal, Fox and Friends, and more. People turn to her for really practical, helpful, encouraging, comforting advice about how to raise kids in times like these. Please welcome Arlene Pellicane to the show. When I found out we were going to get to have this conversation, I was so excited because you have help for parents in a world that has shifted from a play-based childhood to a screen-based childhood with all kinds of terrible consequences for young adults. Thank you. Thank you for your book, and I'm looking forward to talking about it.
It's great to be here, and I think you're so right that if we made life simpler, we'd find that, wow, this is not as hard as we thought it was. Yeah.
Well, I think for a lot of parents, they feel that it's hard, and they sense that in a way it's inevitable that our kids are going to be overcome by technology. But you have a different perspective on this. You're wanting to help children develop skills so they can live well in a tech-driven society. So kind of give us your basic approach to this. And then, I've got a ton of questions, lots of fun things to talk about.
Yeah. So technology is so tricky because we can't say, oh, well, we're just going to disengage with this altogether, because it's not like alcohol. It's not like drugs. It's not like we can just cut this out. This is going to be part of your child's life. And when you hear things like your child must be ready for the 21st century and your child will be left behind and you don't want your child, to be outsmarted, all of a sudden you feel like, oh, I have to get all this technology for my child. But what I love to help and encourage parents of is, okay, look at the results that we are getting with this generation. Look at the results of, okay, this is supposed to connect us. We buy this phone for a 6th grader, an 8th grader, a 10th grader, a 12th grader, so that they don't feel left out and so they're connected. Are you really seeing that play out? So I really want to help a parent realize, no, you are the one who can look at your child and say, you know what? My child would be really better served by not having a phone, by not having social media, by having friends in real life, by having competence and skills other than video gaming. Like that would really help my child. And guess what, parent? You can do that. Like you don't have to do what is normal. So I'm very much about, let's think about these devices and really it's a mixed bag. I like to call them digital vegetables or digital candy. So, you're listening to a podcast right now. This is a digital vegetable. You're learning, you care about your kids, you're here. Hopefully you're going to have a practical, takeaway, and you're going to have like a different philosophical shift when we're done. So this is vegetable. This is good for you. But believe me, you're not waking up at 3:00 in the morning and saying, I'm going to listen to that Miss Arlene again on the Dr. Jeff podcast. Like this is not going to addict you. Like you're not going to get in trouble for this. But what's digital candy? That's all the stuff we do when we want to numb out, when we want to escape, when we don't want to be aware. So we're shopping, we're browsing, we're clicking, we're on YouTube, we're on video games, we're on social media. And that's the candy that is truly making us sick, not only kids, but adults too. So I'd like parents to understand that all content is not equal. There are vegetables and there are candy. But if you really expect a child to be able, and by child, I mean a 2-year-old or a 20-year-old, okay? That if you expect a child to be carrying around digital candy all day, aka a tablet or a phone, and be able to regulate themselves, then you are not living in a realistic world, because it's just like if I took a huge family-sized bag of M&Ms and put them on my desk and said, I have self-control, I have the power of the Holy Spirit, I know that's not really that good for me, I'm just going to eat 10. There is no way with a big family-sized bag of M&Ms on my desk that I'm only going to eat 10. So we have to understand as parents, wow, this is a lot about setting limits and being very intentional about our tech now.
Yeah, that is so good. Even as you describe that, Arlene, I have hope But it does occur to me as a parent, having raised 4 kids through, I guess my kids are on the youngest edge of millennial, older edge of Gen Z. It was really important for me to filter everything through some sort of what is our family about? Why are we here? Why do we exist? And I told my children, even at a young age, I believe God has called me to raise you to be a blessing to the nations of the earth.
Yeah.
That we're not going to be a family where we're takers. We're going to be a family of givers. Like the Apostle Paul said in Philippians chapter 2, everyone should look to the interests of others, not to their own interests. And that's how we're going. So everything I did with them, I said, you'll always know where I'm coming from, because everything that I'm talking about, everything that I'm going alongside of you to do is coming from this perspective of I'm preparing you to be a blessing to the nations of the earth. And I don't know, for some reason that made it easier for us.
And what a shift, because if you're looking at YouTube and your thought is, I'm here to be a blessing to the nations of this earth, you use that differently. So it is so interesting. So if our kids have these very core values that are guiding them through their technology usage, that's kind of what we're talking about, in that it's their mind and their decisions that are going to say, oh, you know what, I've been on the social media platform for an hour, but it's all been about me. It hasn't been about blessing the nations of the earth. I better kind of pull back, so having that lens is really, really helpful. And that's what shows you, like, okay, that could be used for good. But how many of us, right, have taken the time, myself included, to have it be something so easily articulated by our kids, right? That if at gunpoint, what is your value when you're, that they could say, oh, to bless the nations of the earth. I'm not sure that a lot of us as parents have prepared our kids in that really substantial way.
And I can understand that. A lot of families, as soon as your baby is born, you are playing catch up. Right. And then all of a sudden they're off to college. I know one of yours is headed off to college this fall. And you just think, wow, where did the time go? It just felt like we were just trying to make it from day to day sometimes. But having a core principle there.
I want to insert, though, too, like, I'm not saying that's not possible. So right now you might be listening to this thinking, okay, my kids are older, but I want a core principle. It's not too late to do that. So I don't want it to sound like you can't do that, because you can.
Yeah, that's so great. We're talking to Arlene Pellicane about a book and an idea. It's called Screen Kids. And you've tapped into something that every time I've spoken on it, people are like, I need to know more. And that is how somewhere along the way we shifted from a play-based childhood to a screen-based childhood, and we are not better off for it. So we've got to equip our children to live well in a tech-driven world. Let's talk about some of the ideas that are in your book. What are some of the things that you've done with your family that you wrote about in the book that could be helpful to, say, moms and dads who are listening right now?
Yeah. Yeah. I think of a pediatrician, Dr. Dimitri Christakis, and he says, the dumber the toy, the smarter the child. And it's this idea, as you're raising your kids, if they have a stuffed animal bear, what happens? That child animates that stuffed animal bear. They take it along. They learn empathy. They dress it. They do all these things. But when that child has a really smart toy, right? Whether it's like a little baby iPad, whatever it is, what do? They press buttons. They do very little. So that idea of, I want my child to be the one who brings the action. I want my child to be the one who's curious and learning, not just sitting passively. So I think as parents, if we can have this sense of, as my child, I want to protect childhood. I want to protect baseball and tennis and walks and pets and having friends over and baking chocolate chip cookies and going fishing. And I want to protect all these things. They have enough time in their life to be sitting on a couch with a phone. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like that's your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. You're sitting on the couch with a phone. So really have that idea of how can I protect childhood? And a lot of that comes with delaying that device. My husband is a realtor, and he remembers, going to show a family house. This is, when our kids were very little, but they'd be in the minivan and the kids would never look up from their phones, right? And so he's thinking, you're potentially going to move to this neighborhood and you have no idea what it looks like. And then they walk around the house and it's like they're looking at their phones the whole time. So you have no idea you have a say in what your room's going to be, and you don't even realize it. And it was in that moment that my husband got real stubborn. Like, my kids will not do this. Like, if we are looking for a home, they will be looking around and asking questions and looking at the backyard. And so I think it's that understanding. And I like that story because I think it so illustrates what technology does, that all of a sudden, instead of you having the agency to decide what you like, and, instead you have this device, and the device shows you what you like. It shows you what to play instead of you playing it yourself. So I think as a family, if you can say, you know what, we're going to push off that device. So for us, we knew for sure not in elementary school. So I know we're all going to get hung up on this question, when should I give my child a phone? And that's a very complex answer, and probably not one that we have time for, but it is the sense of, okay, well, when does a child get a driver's license? When they're ready to drive. And how do they prove that? By practicing and trying and being supervised. And it's very much like a phone, that if you give your child a phone, now you're trusting that they know what to do. But it's not just them. It's like dropping them off at a mall and saying, hey, I know you're a good person. I'll see you in 6 hours. Good luck. Stay away from the bad people. Like, we would never do that as parents, but we'll give a device and we'll just think like, oh, they're sitting right here. They're fine. So I think there is this, if I had to pass something on, I would say, don't be afraid to be different. If your child's the last one to get a certain social media platform, the last one to get a phone, that's absolutely fine and quite healthy, and be okay with that. And I love to say to people, I would have hated to have been like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego's mom, like they're throwing them into the furnace. Like, this is not a terrible thing that you sent them to school without a phone. Like, the furnace, to me, that would be so much worse. So kind of be like okay with that. Be okay with being different. And then you have to show your child the alternative. Once they taste, oh, this is what real connection feels like. This is what friendship feels like. This is what being competent at something feels like. This is what learning what I love to do, whether it's books or sports or inventing things, whatever it is. Once they taste what that feels like, they're going to know when they have this substitute of this technology that's not as good as the real thing.
You used the term agency. It was the term going through my mind. Psychologists talk about agency as a person's sort of like their source of resilience. What is it that they have that is them taking action?
Yes.
And it's when people become passive, when they feel that they're helpless against their circumstances, that they end up starting to feel more anxious, depressed. All of the studies are showing this now. Jean Twenge, in her book Generation, gives 350 pages of stats and details about, this is what's going on in this generation. And I think you've just really pinpointed exactly why it's happening. Somehow we're raising a generation of kids who do not believe that their life actually makes a difference, that their engagement with reality really matters.
Yeah. And a lot of that, right, it comes from us parents. Like, what are we projecting to them? They're going to catch what we have. And what is parenting? Parenting is this wonderful journey to make us, more like the Lord. And so if we see like, oh, Lord, I'm the one who has to put down my phone. I mean, they did this survey of 6,000 kids and they asked them, what's your parents' worst habit? And more than half of them answered, well, my parents on the phone too much. And the most unhappy were in Brazil. Like 86% of them said, my parents' worst habit is being on the phone too much. So we ourselves have to model that, no, we also want to be engaged. We also think we can make a difference in this world, and we're not just going to kind of escape through our technology, because technology is so lovely because it looks like we're doing something really, special and terrific, whether we're a parent or a child. But in truth, maybe 10% is really, really, truly necessary and great. But there's probably a good 80 to 90% of time that we're just wasting.
Yeah. Let me throw a scenario out here that I know I faced as a parent, you have, and I'm sure a lot of the people who are watching and listening to the show have faced. They have found that technology helps their children be passive at times where we don't have the energy to deal with them.
Yes.
Right. So you see a family in a restaurant, they just give the device to the child and the child doesn't even squawk, doesn't make any noise, doesn't cause any trouble, doesn't throw food. They're just absorbed in the device.
Like, this is magic.
It's magic. And a lot of people feel that way. Just pacify the child. So if a child says, I am the only one at my school who doesn't have a phone, and they're making a big deal out of it, your immediate inclination, if that's your parenting approach, is to pacify them by just giving them what they want.
Yeah.
But you're suggesting there's going to have to be some kind of a conversation. So your child says, I am the only one in my class who does not have this device. Why are you depriving me? How, as a parent, do you have that conversation with your child?
Yeah. Let's go back to that table, right? Because if you will do what is hard in the moment, so it's hard then, you don't feel like it, you've had a long day, you're tired, all those things. It's either going to be hard in that moment, but you do the hard. If you have the child that's at the table who's able to sit there, right, through a 15-minute dinner, okay, it's not like this huge long thing. But if you say, this is going to be hard right now to have my child behave in this restaurant for 15 minutes, but I'm going to do it, because if my child can learn this skill, guess what? I get to have 50 easy dinners after this, where my child is very pleasant to be around. Jordan Peterson in his 12 Rules book, one of the rules is don't let your children do things that make you not like them.
Whoa.
So it's this, I know, right? So it's this idea of, okay, wait, I'm willing to put in some work here so that I can have a much more pleasant life with you, child of mine. So that's the dinner table. That's a child that you could take to a restaurant and not be afraid that they're going to throw a fit because you've practiced it on purpose. Like sometimes at the beginning, you're just going out to practice that skill. You're not really going to eat. Like we are literally going out so that my 5-year-old learns how to eat at this restaurant for 10 minutes without a phone or a tablet. So is that hard? Yes, it's hard. But guess what? If your child will learn it and all of a sudden be okay with a book or be okay with drawing or be okay with something else, you've just bought yourself 5 years of like really pleasant conversations with your kids. So let's bring back that phone conversation that you're going to have. So you say to that child, I am sorry. You have the empathy for your child. I'm sorry. I know it must feel like you are the only one. And, and I lean so much on Dr. Gary Chapman, who's the co-author of the Screen Kids book. He's just the king of how to talk to people. But, I'm sorry that you feel this way. I know I'm telling you it's not a punishment, but you feel like it's a punishment, and I'm sorry. But I can see further down the line than you, and even though you don't understand it now, I'm doing this to protect your mental health. Like, look around you. Look at what is happening around you. And I really think when kids are honest, they can see that, they get it. And just let them know, I'm going to support you through this. Instead of you having this, this is what we're going to do. I advocate the Gab phone. It's a phone that looks pretty normal. It doesn't look like this big, huge, geeky, clunky phone, but it's basically a phone that texts and does GPS and has music and takes pictures, but it does not go on the internet. So you say, okay, child, this is what I'm going to give you. This is how we're going to stay in touch. I know it's not what you want right now, but this is what I know is the healthiest for you. And I'm not going to change my mind.
And they have watches. They have watches too. That same company.
They do. They have watches too. Yeah.
For the child who wants something like that, I got to have the iPhone watch or whatever the Apple Watch is called. Apple Watch.
Yeah. It's kind of getting towards what do you need this for? And let's try to help you like what you really need. And of course, they're going to want it for other reasons. And it's just the point of being a parent. Do your kids want to eat vegetables? Do they want to go to, maybe they want to do something that you can't afford? Like, this is not a new problem. Parents and children from the beginning of time, children have been saying, I'm the only one who doesn't have this thing, or you is the only one that you won't let me go to the party. Like, this is not new. So for us as parents to realize, wait a minute, this is not new. This is just a more expensive problem, but it's not new. And to be able to say, no, these are and you really do have to pre-decide. Like, if you are listening to this and you're at the stage where you can pre-decide, hey, we're going to get the phone at this age and not even have conversations about it beforehand. If you can pre-decide those things, that'll really help you, so that when your child comes to you with their mopey face and with their 100th request, you can say, nope, that's something that we've already decided.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that makes it so much easier. So you've got a little bit older child and they say, Mom, I have got to access the internet to do this research for the paper that I have been assigned. What's a good way to handle that kind of thing in your home?
Yeah. So for most of us listening, you're going to have access to that. So whether it's, and for, to be honest, like, our schools give us, tablets or whatever since seventh grade is what my kids experience. I know they're giving them even earlier now. So it's very, very likely that it's like, yeah, get on your school computer and go do that. Like, I don't need to buy you another device for you to do that. You can go on your school device. If there is not a school device, then it's very likely that you as a parent or grandma or grandpa have a device that can be used for that purpose by that child. So just look for other solutions because they are there.
Hey, it's Dr. Jeff Myers from Summit Ministries. How confident are you in talking with your kids about gender? Because it's more than just transgenderism and sexuality. We need to help our young adults become confident in who God made them to be as young men and women. So Dr. Kathy Cook and I recently have authored a book called Raising Gender Confident Kids. It equips you with the tools that you need to help your children navigate these turbulent waters. When Dr. Kathy and I wrote this book, we decided to focus on giving a biblically based approach to helping teach kids the truth about who God made them to be. We show you how you can be compassionate, promote hope and truth, and in the process, understand the cultural challenges and how they're affecting our own kids. What we want is to nurture confident, secure boys and girls to become godly young men and women. So, even if transgender has not been a big part of the conversation in your home, this book is a must-read if you're committed to discipling children to embrace their design that was given to them by God. You can get your free copy of Raising Gender Confident Kids today at genderconfidentkids.com. Let's talk about the threat of increased screen time a little bit, because this is something you dig into, and it is. I hang out with thousands of young people, but I also hang out with a lot of people who are educational psychologists and therapists and others. I've never seen the professional psychologists so nervous as they are right now in trying to deal with the educational and emotional development of children in a tech-driven age. Can we just talk a little bit about that? What's at risk if we don't act?
Yeah. And this lays most, squarely on the parent as we're listening. A counselor cannot tend to 300 people, but a parent can tend to 5 children or 1 child or whatever. And this is not at all meant to be a guilt trip, but this is meant to be like a starting point. Like if it's a screen-free dinner and that we all do it and that mom and dad put it down, because what is at risk is that we do not know how to communicate with each other. We don't know how to read each other's body language. We don't know how to have the patience to have a real relationship. When you're on tech, like our kids are, they're used to what? Choice. I can choose 1,000 things. And if one thing doesn't work out, something else will. I'll find something. I'll find a show I want. So they have choice. It's instant. They're texting someone. They're going to get an answer within 3 seconds or else they're upset about it. Well, what happens in real relationships? A lot of times you have to wait. A lot of times you have to wait on the other person isn't ready to even communicate to you about that thing. And when you're talking to God, you say something to God, and for many, so you look at the Bible and these prophets, they're preaching for 30 years before, you know what I'm saying? It's like, this is not how this works. So how is this impacting their spirituality? Like think of it that our voice is one voice saying he is the true God. But let's say they're spending 9 hours with a device that's saying, hey, there's lots of gods. And obviously it's very subtle and it's very sophisticated and super persuasive. And so you're having different voices that are going straight into the heart of your child. Your child is being intimate, not with you as a parent, not with a sibling, not with a best friend in real life, but with but an online group, which is really, think of it like before before technology, you just kind of had to make it in your classroom. Who am I in my classroom? And you're kind of seeing your status in the class, and you've got your few friends and you've got your thing, and that's great. Well, when your kid goes online, they have to compete, and the same with parents, with the whole world. It's like, you're looking at every 18-year-old who is online, and it's like, how in the world am I going to stack up against that? So we're losing what real friendship is. Like, what does it mean to have a real friend? Because that real friend brings comfort, soothes, teaches us how to be a good parent someday, teaches us how to be a good employee, a good employer, all those things. So I think the biggest threat is our relationships, what is a real friend? Do I have one? Do I have respect for authority? Because online, authority is like, bam, you're just bashing authority all day long. And then, as Dana Gresh, my friend, says, the kingdom of God is not a democracy. The kingdom of God it's a kingdom. There's a king and there are subjects. And so if our kids are learning all the time, all these kinds of values, so the values your children are getting, the lack of skills with people. And Dr. Chapman and I, in the book, we have 5 A+ skills. So I'll just mention them, but it's the A+ skill of affection. So if your child doesn't know what real love is, what's that going to mean for them? Appreciation. Does your child say thank you? Or are they entitled? I have a right to that. I am the victim. Or are they appreciative? Anger management. We're all going to be angry, but how do we determine whether it's a righteous anger or not righteous anger? And how do we act on it in an appropriate way? Apology. Do we know to say, like, I'm wrong, I did the wrong thing and I'm sorry? Or do we just say, like, oh yeah, they misunderstood me and it was their fault anyway. If they didn't do that, I wouldn't have done this. And then the last A+ skill, attention. Can your child take a wandering attention and read a Bible passage or sit through a job interview? So we're seeing that kids today, and I think you could, your Summit kids that come to Summit, they're going to be a cut above because they're kids that are coming to Summit. They're coming to learn. So they're already kind of a cut above. But if you look at just the average kid, and you think of it, are they appreciative? Do they know how to do affection? Are they good with anger? Do they know how to apologize? Can they keep attention? I mean, the average teacher is going to go, no, 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 no. Like, we are failing in these areas, and it's because we're not practicing them. We're good at video games, and we know how to use filters, but we don't know how to do these relational skills that are really the things that are important in your child's life.
As you've been saying this, it something clicked in my mind, and I'm thankful. One of the things I love about doing the show is I get to learn. I have seen every year with the students we work with. And again, at Summit Ministries, we have several thousand who come to in-person programs. We have tens of thousands who engage with us through curriculum courses and other kinds of things. We have noticed that communication breakdown, that inability to figure out how to interact with other people in a socially appropriate way. And I hadn't really thought of the trend line until you're mentioning this. But there are things that students do, and you think, what on earth made you think that was a socially appropriate way to interact with this other person? Where did you get that? It's like we have a generation of kids emerging because of their constant access to technology who don't have basic social skills. I mean, people always used to say, you shouldn't have homeschooling because what about socialization? Like the kids who've actually had real conversations are the only ones who are socialized at this point.
Yeah.
Am I on the right track there? Because I think I need to start
Absolutely.
training with our team.
No,
they know the communication is
true.
what we've got to work on.
And a lot of times we'll think, oh, it's the kid, they're shy or they're this or they're that. And as a parent, sometimes we'll think, oh, they're not as communicative. But you know what? It's learned. Like, you learn how to look someone in the eye. You learn how to shake the hand. And you can be an introvert, and that's 100% beautiful. That's the way God made you. But it still means when you meet someone, you look at them and you shake their hand. And so you can still teach these social skills to your kids regardless of their personality. But now more than ever, you're right, they have to be taught because they're having less less practice is really what it is. It used to be, oh, people went to church and they learned how to interact that. Well, less and less people go to church. Well, people used to go to service clubs and they'd serve and do something and they'd know each other. Well, people don't do that. People used to play like pickup games outside and sports and tag and kickball or whatever. But they don't do that anymore. They used to ride bikes around the neighborhood or build forts. Well, they don't do that either. So it's like they're like adults and kids. We're not doing these practice kinds of things of social skills. So that is a good thing for you as a parent to think, how can I get my kid to practice these skills? How can I schedule them? You know, as our kids got older, when they wanted to do certain things, like my son wanted to be an engineer. So my husband would say, okay, who do I know that's an engineer? And he would set up a lunch. Now, this is when they're, you know, a sophomore or junior in high school, and they go to lunch with the engineer, and we, you know, tell them like, you know, you should offer to pay for this man's lunch and you should talk to him, et cetera. What does that do? It's making them practice talking to someone. And so schedule those kinds of things. And if that's terrifying to your child, you know, you do a lot of practice at home first and then send them out to do it.
Yeah. That's so good. You know, one of our sayings at Summit Ministries is, you need old people.
Yes, it's so true. And old people need young people.
Old people need, you need old people and old people need you.
Yeah, it's so true.
That knowledge is now, because of the internet and AI and, you know, machine learning, the cost of knowledge has gone way down, but the value of wisdom has gone way up.
Yes.
How about, let's go back to the table for a minute. So your child is there and you know, we've already had the conversation about, oh, I'm the only one who doesn't have this kind of a phone. Then the child says, well, you know, you keep talking about friendship and how important that is, but I can't get my friends' attention because of technology. How do I help my friends learn how to interact in a socially appropriate way? You know, where do I go? I feel lonely.
Yeah.
What if they say that?
Oh, and I feel for you in that sense. So I'm going to go think of my daughter. She's a senior in high school now. She doesn't have a phone. She has friends. And so people will ask her, you know, like, how does this work? Like, how do you have friends if you don't have a phone? How does this work? And she will say there is a frustration, like when they're at lunch. Sometimes, okay, let me back up with this. The kinds of friends that your children will have, you actually will pre-qualify them by not having a device. So for instance, if they can't be your friend because you don't have a device, what my kids would say is, that's not the kind of friend I really want, Mom, because it's a certain kind of person that would say, you can't be my friend, you don't have a phone. You know, they don't say it like that, but that's kind of it. So you want the kind of friend who is totally into technology, but doesn't mind that you're not. Mm-hmm. Right. So that's kind of the kind of friend that you're looking for. So let them know that's okay to look for that kind of person, like that person exists. And then my daughter will say, sometimes it's frustrating, like at lunch, they're just like looking at their phones or stuff, but she'll say like, hey, you guys, let's put down our phones and let's just talk for a little bit. And I think kids don't mind that they pretend like they don't like it, but they don't mind that. And just giving our kids the confidence to lead the way in this area.
Yeah. I really love that answer. And I can imagine a lot of different ways you could actually put it into practice. So, you know, when children are at taekwondo or ballet or playing lacrosse or football or on the debate club or in drama, when they're actually practicing their thing, all the phones are in the gym bags off at the side, right? So they're not using the phones. They're actually having real interactions in a way.
Yeah.
So,
and on that note, just on a technical side, my daughter does use my phone, so her friends can text me and she gets that at home and she can check her computer and she sees that. So there are like workarounds to these things, but just for you to know that there are, you can be a little creative.
Yeah, that's so good. Well, I appreciate that. That's really helpful. As I think a lot of parents, they want the security of knowing that they can contact their child at any time, and that, you know, that may be a big motivation for people. But for the child, the way you can find friends is you're involved in an activity with people who also like that activity, where the phones are set aside for the duration of the practice or the performance or the lesson or whatever else it is. And friendships are often formed in those areas because there's a real activity going on. There's real learning taking place. The interaction is real and meaningful. And something we should get back to.
Yeah, absolutely. We have found that to be true 100%.
One thing I'd love to ask as we get ready to draw to a close, and so I spent a lot of time reading the social science research dealing with what this generation is going through since I'm interacting with them all of the time. And one of the shocking things that we've discovered is an extraordinarily high and rapidly accelerating level of self-hate among young people. And I'd just be curious how technology actually does that. Like kids saying things like, I can't seem to do anything right. Sometimes I don't even know why I'm here. And if you were to look at it, it looks like a hockey stick. You know, it's a level from the 1970s, 1980s, 90s, 2000s. Right about 2013, it goes straight up. I have to think that that's somehow related to the growth of smartphone use. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are.
I 100% think it is related to the smartphone use. And I think about, you know, if you were bullied at school without a phone, like that just stays right there. It's just at school. But now you have a phone. Maybe you even move schools to get away. But guess what? They're following you in your pocket. So it is this accessibility of any negative thought that someone wants to send your way. You're like a target, like they can get to you. I think there's something in the coldness of a phone that wouldn't be said in real life. You know, something that two kids would not say to each other in real life. They will very easily say on a phone. And it's almost like a competition, like who can say like the worst thing to this person or whatever it is. And then, so I think it's that lack of courtesy, lack of respect that categorizes the phone use. I think there's a lot of that. And then, you know, I was watching this thing about how TikTok in China is different than TikTok in America. And just thinking like the TikTok in China that they make, it's very like, oh, they're learning how to solve Rubik's Cubes and they're drawing. Like it's completely different. But in America, they say, oh, let's give them, and they give all these terrible, like, let's give them like, and so this is what I'm saying is why people think this. It's because they're being fed things about drugs, things about trans, things about doing challenges at your school, like I can't think of the word, vandalism, So all these things like eating disorders, that's what they are on purpose being fed by China. It's just like, and people who can watch this YouTube video can see that I am Chinese, so I'm not against China. But what we need to wake up and realize is what is being fed. There's a Wall Street Journal person that pretended to be a 13-year-old on TikTok. They got 569 videos about drug use. It's like that what is being fed is really garbage. So we have to understand, wait a minute, where are these thoughts coming from? Well, if you are looking at thoughts like that for much of the day, it's only naturally that's going to start coming out.
Well, this is amazing. This has been so much fun to visit with you. We loved having your son at Summit Ministries.
He loved it. Thank you. Yeah. We're so appreciative of what you all do.
And excited for you with this book. Gary Chapman is awesome. We've known him for a very, very long time. And I'm really thankful, Arlene, that you've taken on this topic. And so we've been talking to Arlene Pellicane, and the book is called Screen Kids. So here's the subtitle, 5 Skills Every Child Needs in a Tech-Driven World. And the way you tie it in with the 5 love languages, the way you tie it in with those 5 A+ skills, it's just so affirming to parents. Right now, more than ever, we as parents need to know how to stand strong on behalf of our kids so they can stand strong in a world that really needs them to be strong.
Yeah, and know you're listening to this, you are not alone, so be strong. And it's like, okay, if you're going to stir up the bee's nest, the mamas and the papas, we're going to rise up and say, no, we're going to protect our kids. So thank you so much for what you're doing for our kids, Jeff.
Thanks so much for being on the show today. Thank you so much to my guest, Arlene Pellicane, for coming on the show today. The Dr. Jeff Show podcast is a resource of Summit Ministries. Summit equips and supports the rising generation to embrace God's truth and champion a biblical worldview. So, if you want more resources that will help you live out a biblical worldview, whether you're a student or whether you're trying to reach the next generation as an educator, church leader, or parent, head over to summit.org/resources for articles, videos, ebooks, and more. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.